So this is a little presentation that I did about my master's project. It was called Beyond Extraction, Reimagining the Palm Oil Industry Through Ecological and Economic Paradigm Shifts. It was a really interesting research, and I thought I'd share it with y'all. In case anyone has interest or questions, that would be great. But basically, my research was related to the palm oil industry because I love forests, tropical ones in particular. And so a lot of my focus goes into stopping them from being logged, burned, poisoned, etc. And especially as the climate crisis gets worse, right? Because the forests are our shield. They are the climate stabilizers. They are what creates the flow of the hydrologic cycle. They create the flow of carbon dioxide exchange with oxygen. They are the ones who create the flow of air and water that regulates the climate. And one of the big reasons why we have the climate crisis as bad as it is right now is because of deforestation. We are logging this shield that we have that both produces stability and protects us from climate events. So, in this research, I attempted to reimagine the palm oil industry as a means to regenerate the forests and ecosystems that it currently destroys. And I did that by implementing the sustainable and ecological principles that I learned through the course of my master's program. So, the palm oil industry is a wicked problem strategically because it supplies 50% of the global market. And it's not just for food products, but cosmetics, cleaning, biofuel. It's an incredibly versatile material and so deeply embedded in our supply chain. This unfortunately creates a very hungry need for palm oil, and so forests and biodiversity are destroyed to make room for this growing demand. But cutting down palm oil ecosystems to replace them with high-yielding monocultures comes with a myriad of issues. Most are of a social and ecological nature, and are more long-term considerations. Ecosystem services, climate stability, right? These are not really considered in the math of an economic system that prioritizes short-term, profit-driven goals, right? What gets measured gets managed. But sometimes there's an active externalization of costs that you don't want to manage. And this seems to be the case with the palm oil industry. It has a lack of transparency, lack of tracing, accountability. Those things amplify climate change that affects all of us, the industry included. It's definitely a sustainability issue. So here I summarize the findings of my literature review. But basically, I compared and contrasted the real cost of the industry's activities with the social and environmental externalities accounted for. And then I also looked at the value and the wealth that we miss that is inherent in ecosystems existing beyond being resources or materials to be consumed. Through that, I was able to categorize these issues, find some themes, and then design a system that incorporates sustainable, nature-inspired solutions that diminish the impacts while working to regenerate damages to the forest and local communities. And then this makes the system itself more resilient and integrated. So the ultimate goal is to provide a sustainable or even regenerative alternative to deforestation and monocultures, which cause and continuously contribute to climate change. The major challenge that I discovered through my research is that these kinds of solutions, they're not considered economically viable in a system run by short-term profit-driven targets, where nature is mostly a resource and then other aspects of value are barely considered, if at all. And so for these solutions to be applicable or even considered, two frameworks or paradigms require some shifting. Number one is how we shape our economy. And then number two is how we view our ecology. Addressing these multilateral macro sustainability issues requires us to consider nature in our economic math as the source of true value, beyond being the source of all materials and consumables. But then we also need to recognize its intrinsic value in just existing, just being. Regionally, providing food, water, breathable air, and then globally being a major lever in the climate stability for the planet. Ultimately, we must change not only how our systems operate, but how we speak about these systems and their parts, especially the social, environmental, and economic aspects that we tend to externalize and avoid addressing. However, if we manage to shift our mentality around value attribution, new types of thinking become possible. As for example, this prototype that I simply called the Forest Lab. It attempts to synergize the solution and the themes that I mentioned previously into a business model of ecosystem regeneration that marries indigenous knowledge and Western science, and then again is inspired by nature circularity. It's mostly a concept that needs to be fleshed out in a paper of its own, apparently beyond the scope of this particular paper. But the point is that something like this, which synergizes nature based solutions and is aligned with sustainable principles, would only be possible or profitable in a system not tethered to false economic assumptions. Just how it is. To finish off, reimagining the palm oil industry to go beyond extraction requires a fundamental shift in how our global systems operate. And that, in turn, is tied to our collective perception of value, which we exercise and enforce every day with our actions and our words and our money. It's not really glamorous, and I really wish I had something more shiny or concrete to end this with, but this is how transformational change happens, right? It's slowly over time and from the ground up, much like the tropical palm forests that inspired this research and this paper. So that's basically it. This presentation that I prepared for my master's final, I guess. It was a very interesting paper, just really made me realize how much work we have to do. And not only the systems that we operate, because we always focus so much on like what we do, right? And there is a lot of things that we have to do, but we kind of forget that the things that we do are framed by our mindset, by our culture, by how we view nature, how we view value, how we view abundance and wealth. And I find that right now we have a very big problem of kind of a scarcity mindset that, is just, it's quantity over quality. It doesn't respect the slowness of nature, not at all. We don't observe that everything has seasons and that regeneration is required. It's just infinite expansion in a finite planet. And it's just unsustainable. And it's leading us down a very bad path. And I really wish that we find our way mentally more than anything, honestly, because if we cannot perceive the value in the nature around us, the system itself is just going to continue consuming it. So yeah, very, very interesting research. I had a very fun time, despite the fact that it was very depressing to recognize how much work we have, how far we are from getting it done. We have the solutions. Nature-based solutions can show us much of what we need to do in order to reverse this path. But unfortunately, that is not the dominant paradigm. The dominant paradigm that we have, especially in North America, which is a major contributor to all of the supply, right? All of the demand comes from North America and Europe and the rich countries, disproportionately so. So we are the ones that drive this deforestation in mostly tropical. We call them developing, but they're just developing because we're developing over them, And again, this kind of wording, it matters. It matters because it gives the idea that these places are like lesser and we are going there and helping them by putting industry there and giving them jobs. But it actually diminishes the health of the entire place and the people around it. We just don't see it because we are at the end of the supply chain. We just get the product with all the costs externalized to other communities and other ecosystems and the climate, which is now turning and affecting us. So everything is connected. We are connected to everything. Like John Muir says, we try to pick out anything by itself and we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. I love that quote. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for being interested in this, for giving me your time and your ear. And I hope that you have learned something from it or taking anything of value from this for your own life.